All right, hello everybody. This is a special edition of Kickstarter Talk. I wanted to get together, as I had promised for a few weeks now, and talk about Kickstarters and talk about the things I've learned and the things that I think that are 10 potential landmines and mistakes that creators make during a Kickstarter. Now, to do an incomprehensive Kickstarter video, tell you all the ins and outs of it, would take, probably a day. There's just that much information. So there's a lot of good people who talk about it. Russell, who's on the show, and Spoken Sins is great about it. Dirk Manning is great about talking about what to do on Kickstarters. There's the Kickstarter launch now on Facebook. If you guys want the link, I can send you to the right place. So there's a bunch of people talking about Kickstarters, talking about the right things. These are just 10 things that I want to quickly go over that I think are mistakes that I've seen made, or me and my wife wound up tripping over ourselves during our Kickstarter. So I wanted to be able to share that with everyone and let them know what potential mistakes there are. And if anyone has any questions while I'm doing this, I am paying attention on our Facebook page and on our live YouTube stream, which a lot of people are now watching as I'm setting it up now to have the comment section set up. So this is going to be a more interactive one than I normally have, so I'm not going to be racing through it. So if you guys do have a comment, I will be checking periodically for those comments. So just as a quick thing, the reason why I feel like I can talk about Kickstarter and talk about the things about Kickstarter is not only did I help my wife run a successful Kickstarter, but I've been helping people with their Kickstarters for over 2 years now. I have studied it. I have, you can hear Jackson in the background. I have made it something that I am very familiar with, and I definitely understand it. With that said, I want you all to understand that the game constantly changes. The rules change constantly. There's always someone doing it different and doing it better. And with that in mind, you have to be willing to adjust, and it's your job to study Kickstarters, to look at them, to understand the formats of them, and to be able to make a Kickstarter that's going to be competitive. Kelly Bender's done great, as you guys can see on our site. Now, I have Creators Written Sins, our actual public group on Facebook right here, because if you have a Kickstarter, this is where it starts. You give it to me here, and we wind up putting it on our site. Now, just to show you guys, I've personally backed 134 projects, and we have helped in Written Sins to date over 100 Kickstarters get funded. Now, when I say we helped, we don't take any credit for it. We've just been part of the process. No one gets funded because we helped them. They get funded because they made a great Kickstarter. And they made something that was very, very, it was great quality. And it was something that needed to come to life. And that's something that, sorry, just a phone call. That's something that's very important to the ability to get your Kickstarter funded. So, with that in mind, we're going to go over the 10 things I see as a problem. As you can see, these are all things that I have personally, dealt with, and not dealt with, but backed myself. These are things I'm a fan of, and it's important to realize that you want to build a fan base. You want to have the ability to build people wanting to come to your Kickstarter. And these are a lot of Kickstarters that absolutely just, I can show you really quickly. These are all the Kickstarters that I needed to be a part of. So there were 138 Kickstarters that so far, I have about 134 that I have backed. And trust me, my wife wishes it was less, but I love comic books. What can I say? Now, I'm going to start going over, and you guys are going to see on the screen as I'm going over some things. You're just going to see like the content, and I'll explain what certain things are as we go over them, but let's get into the list. Number 10 on my list was do not expect everyone on your friends list to back you. Now, this is a big problem I think a lot of people have. They expect to have this giant friends list, and everyone on their friends list is going to donate at least $1, and they're going to easily get funded. Let me just tell you, and it's nothing personal, you're only going to have about, maybe if you're lucky, 10% of your friends list show up on your actual backing list. It's just how it is. Every creator who's done it will tell you this is it. There's a lot of different reasons. Sometimes it's money. Sometimes people just don't necessarily want that project. I've had people tell me that sometimes it's just because they want to get it from you in person later at a con and be able to get that signature and have that interaction with you. So there are many reasons. Don't hold it against anyone. For anyone who ever doesn't necessarily back your project or anything, don't take it personally. Don't burn bridges. Don't get mad. Don't put up something on Facebook talking about how everyone sucks on your friends list because they're not supporting you. Don't do that shit. You know, understand everyone who's backing you believes in you, and people who are sharing your stuff is believing in you. You don't always need someone to be spending money on you to show belief. You don't know their circumstance. Someone could be struggling. Someone might have something coming up, or they might have their own plans for something. So don't judge people, and don't expect it. Never expect anyone to back you or pledge to you. That's just unfair. That's unreasonable. Don't do it. It's just bad mental thinking. When you go into Kickstarter, do not expect anyone that you know to back it, but expect to hustle to get people to back it. And there's a big difference there. And that means that you have to earn the backing, even if they're on your friends list. Keeping that in mind, research your rewards, costs of shipping before you start the Kickstarter clock. Because once you're on the Kickstarter clock, it's already sometimes too late to start negotiating deals with what you're going to pay for, you know, t-shirts, what you're going to pay for 11x17s. And that was a mistake that me and my wife made. I assumed things would be easier than they wound up being for that. And because of issues that we'll talk about later on this list, we wound up scrambling to get things out, and we wind up spending more than we would have wanted to. But to me, and this is something that's very important, and this doesn't necessarily make the list, but it should, and it came close to making the list, is you want to always deliver your Kickstarters on time, if not early. If you're not delivering on time, don't expect to go to Kickstarter again and have the same fan following unless you're getting on videos and explaining to every person and making sure it reaches every person why your Kickstarter is late. That is just something you have to come to grips with. It's your responsibility when someone backs you to actually be part of the conversation that talks about delays or making sure everyone has it. We're only doing this video now that we've made the attempt to deliver everything. And I say we've made the attempt because so far we haven't heard anything about mispackaging. We have heard about damages, and we have sent out replacements due to damaging during shipping. But that's going to happen, and that's something to look forward to, that things are going to go wrong. When you, especially if you did like what I did. I ordered my t-shirts off Vistaprint, had them sent, but now I don't know if Vistaprint made a mistake. And if you're using an outside vendor, you also have to expect that to happen. So keep all that in mind. You want to have everything as ready to go as you can when you first start your countdown clock on Kickstarter. Have your stretch goals ready. Now, one mistake I made, and me and Alyssa talked about this after running it, and she made for the Kickstarter, and I advised her not to do a lot of stretch goals, and that wound up being a mistake. We should have done more stretch goals, because honestly, we had two different ideas. If we made a large amount of money, we were going to do this, but we never expected it, and I kind of got. It was funny. I was promoting other people's Kickstarters at times more than I was promoting Alyssa's Kickstarter, and she was kind of like, "Why are you doing that?" And I didn't want that Kickstarter fatigue for everyone to happen. And we're going to talk about how to cure Kickstarter fatigue, but you can't be afraid to promote yourself and get on cameras and talk about it and get on podcasts, and that's important. But, you know, you're doing that too because you want to reach your stretch goals. Your stretch goals cannot be something that's going to make you go broke in the bank. Remember that. Don't do things in stretch goals that are too extravagant. Once again, go back to number 9 and research rewards, because a stretch goal is going to add a cost to everyone if you're adding it to the tier. And I've seen a couple creators make that mistake where they didn't realize the added cost for everyone who already backed it would wind up killing the money they made, and they'd wind up going into debt on the project, which everyone goes into debt, generally speaking. There are a few exceptions, but generally speaking, everyone who's starting a Kickstarter goes into a slight amount of debt. And you have to remember, if you're paying an extra $200 or $300, you got whatever, let's say $2,000. You got $2,000 to do what you had to do. So if you're paying $300 to get $2,000, you're not losing. You know what I'm saying? You're winning. So I don't see a problem with that. It's a good investment. It's like you're buying a lottery ticket and you're spending $300 for it to get that support. And granted, you got to get things out there, but Kickstarter is always going to make it easier. So once again, don't go on Kickstarter and bitching about how much extra you have. You can always talk about it and tell people, hey, listen, I raised this amount of money, and this is the realistic cost, just so everyone knows. And that keeps people understanding that no one's using Kickstarter as an ATM. Now, another big mistake people make for number 7 is do not wait until you start your Kickstarter clock to start advertising. Everyone does this. They come to me on the day they launch and they go, okay, can you help me promote this? And I'm like, cool, what have you been doing so far for it? And they're like, nothing. And that's a horrible idea. My next Kickstarter with my wife, which I'm helping her, like I did the first one, and she's going to be releasing it in October, has already begun. We've already started talking about it. It's May. It's 5 months away. We did the same thing with Kickstarter for Fetish Babies 1. We were talking about it 6 months in advance. You want to be ahead of the curve and talking about it early. And bring it to Written Sins. Bring it to writtensins.com. Tell us, hey, this is coming out. You know, can you help me? Get that that Facebook event page set up where you get people invited to the event and you can give them updates on what's going on. This is just smart business. Be ahead of the business curve. Be ahead of the plan. 4 to 5 months out is where I would say to get comfortable and start advertising it, start hinting about it, start talking about it on social media. You don't have to overdo it. You can do things once a week, if not once every other week. But get the idea out there so when they finally see it, they want to hit the trigger. I know some people say when you advertise too much, that doesn't work. Well, then tell that to the $1 million companies that you keep going to the stores to buy their stuff because they kept advertising and it's in your head now. And you go to the store and pick that brand because you think that brand is the better brand and you can't tell why. You want to know why? Because you've watched their commercials, because you've heard their radio advertisements, because it's been implanted in your brain. So yes, there is overkill with advertising. That's when you do the same thing repetitively over and over again every day. If you're not doing repetitive stuff every day, then you're not over advertising. We're going to talk about how to pivot and not do the same thing every day. Okay, number 6 is do not pay for advertising if your goal is small. This is something that I do see as a problem, and I talked about it. And we even tried at one point to actually do it. We tried to advertise on Facebook, and we did this more as just an educational thing. We wanted to know about what would Facebook advertising do, and it cost us more money than it got us. Because I had the analytics set up for Google on the actual thing, on the actual Kickstarter, and because of my ability to see Written Sin stuff in the background of it, I was able to see actually who was backing what and where all our stream was coming from, and Facebook did not help. They'll tell you you'll reach 30,000 people, but what they don't tell you is that by reaching them, they just mean that a person scrolled past it. It doesn't mean they engaged. There's an important button called engaged, and for what I think we spent $40 on advertising, and it was funny. The advertising, I'll just take a minute to explain this. For our advertising, I'm going to quickly go over to Fetish Babies here and show you guys. Okay, we were doing things like for advertising, we were putting this out as an image, let's say. And it wasn't necessarily this image. I'll show you the exact image because it is here on it, the one that got rejected. I think it's here. I'm just going to explain as I look for it. So what we were doing is we were using these things as advertisements, and we were trying these. And as an example, it was based upon this. I don't have it up, and that's my fault, and I apologize for that. I should have had it up. But it was something similar to this, where right around here, the arrow that should be showing to you guys. We cut it right here, and we put it out, so you couldn't even see her hogtied on the bed. You only saw these 2 versions of Barbara. And we put on Kickstarter now, and we sent it to Facebook. Facebook kicked it back and said, oh, we can't do that because it's too sexualized, blah, 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 blah. And what was funny is we'd used it like the day before that. So I looked at my wife, and I was like, I bet you if I resubmit it now, it'll work, because we'd resubmitted the other one in the morning. So later at night, I resubmitted it, and sure enough, they approved it. So Facebook in itself was a wild ride. And one day I'll do a full video about it. But just keep that in mind when you're posting something on Facebook for their advertising. You're going to get different results with the time of day that you're actually advertising and the different where they're going to put it out. I noticed that too. When I ran an ad earlier in the day for it, we didn't necessarily get the same traction that we ran later at night. So there are a lot of demographics that go into the advertising. So if you have a smaller goal, I suggest avoiding it. It'll cost you more than it's worth. If you have a larger goal, that means that you've gotten to a bigger spot, and that might help you, but I would definitely research what platforms work best. I know people say Facebook works better than Twitter. I could definitely see that. But the one thing I will say is that when it comes to advertising, sites like Written Sins, people sharing your stuff, that's going to be your best advertising. Things that aren't going to cost you money and your friends are supporting you, that's the best thing you can have, because then it's not a cold ad, it's someone talking about what you're doing. So I would definitely suggest that. Number 5, always make new ads for your Kickstarter. One of the biggest mistakes I see is that people use the same ad continuously, even when they come to me. They ask me to redo their ads, and I tell people all the time, hey, do me a favor, tag me every time you have a new ad. I'll update the ad that we keep repeating for you on our site. And a lot of times people just don't change their ads. To credit, like we talked about Philippe being on here. Philippe does a great job at making new ads. We did a great job on Fetish Babies at making new ads, and that really helped. When you're circulating the same art, you're circulating the same ads, you're only hurting your Kickstarter because people do get fatigued at that. So there's nothing wrong with making a quick new ad. Just throw a new ad up. Use even just changing the picture you're using matters. Changing the wording, make it interesting. You want to engage people. Remember, Tide, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, they all change their commercials after a week or two. You don't necessarily see the same commercials. They release 5 or 6 of them at a time. Keep that in mind. Don't have one generic ad that's going to run for your entire month-long campaign. You're only going to do yourself a disservice. Number 4, okay, this is why we have Philippe up here, because I use Philippe, and he's live on Kickstarter right now if you're watching this video for the next 3 days. So today is the 16th, so it's live on the 16th, 17th, and 18th. If you watch this after May 19th or after, it's no longer live. But before then, if you're watching this, come to Kickstarter and put in the Few and the Curse. Number 3, Philippe has this Kickstarter running, doing great with it, by the way, just nailing it. And the reason I have his up is not only am I a huge fan of his work in this, but I love what he did, and it's not loaded like it's supposed to be. So we're just going to quickly go down here. What I liked what he did is, and this is a huge mistake, and here it is, so often this is forgotten. So often on Kickstarter, people don't put the team behind it. They just put about the book, and that's it. Remember, they're investing in you as a creator as much as they're investing in a comic book. So if you want people to take you serious, if you want people to be out there, you know, sharing your stuff, you have to put the humanity in it. You have to make sure that people understand that this is something that's being, this is a big deal. And it's a big deal because people are backing it, people are sharing it, people are part of it, people are doing their thing. So you have to show the team behind it. You have to show the humanity behind it. You have to put the writer, you know, in there. You have to put your artist in there. You have to put your colorist in there. And like I said, people didn't do that with a lot of Kickstarters, and I was always shocked by it. I literally have to go out and reach out to people and ask them, hey, could you tag your team and tell me who your team is so I can give them the credit and talk about them at certain points? And I think that's a big mistake and a big missed opportunity. And you'll see in my Kickstarter, just like Philippe, we really, I mean, we talked about everyone. We put the creative team. There's my wife. I'm there right there, and I got the Written Sins logo representing me. We have Satane, who just absolutely nailed the art. We have our editor in it, Leah, who's awesome. If you don't know her, you should look her up. I'm getting a Kickstarter notification while we're doing this. We have Chris Matt, who gave a back cover. We have Carlos Villas, which Carlos Villas didn't wind up getting the thing because he was a hidden gem, and he wound up doing this, so Carlos wasn't mentioned. And we didn't get Victor Dandridge in until the very end of the Kickstarter, so by the time he agreed to be part of the back page as our synopsis, Kickstarter was just about over. And here comes the boss, the CEO of Written Sins, running through the video yelling about Fugels. So, you know, always have your team on there. Always show you the humanity behind the project, because they're backing people too. And you don't know. Maybe people don't know that the creators that are on it are actually wind up, you know, on that particular project. They might be a fan of one of the creators behind it. You know, for us, they might have been a fan of Chris. They might have been a fan of Carlos. They might have been a fan of Philippe, because half the time when this is going out there, people see the name of the comic book. They don't always necessarily know the person behind it. So bring that humanity to your project. Always have your creative team behind it. Show them off. Show who they are. I mean, the art is great, and then put people behind it and make it human, and people are going to want to invest in it. Why do people buy Marvel Comics? Because they understand there's a standard. Philippe has made a standard now. Philippe is going to be going out there, and he's going to be a standard because you've seen what he does in comic books. So now anything that Philippe is part of, people are going to want to back because he's a great creator. And that's something to keep in mind. That's what gets Kickstarters funded sometimes, more than just the theme itself, is the belief in the creator behind it. So that's what you want to build. And you can't build that belief if you're not telling about the people involved in the project. You want to support these people, and you want to actually, as the creator of the Kickstarter, make sure that you're showcasing them so they can build a bigger fan base. So when you're building their bigger fan base and you guys work together on the next issue, they're bringing a bigger fan base. It's all symbiotic. You all have to support each other, and you all have to put them in there. You have to make sure that you're talking about them. I mean, imagine how shitty you'd feel if you weren't involved in the conversation on something you worked on. That wouldn't be fair. Don't do that. Make a spot on your Kickstarter that talks about your team. Even if it's really simple or basic, or you're showing their work and have it linked back to their page, you have to do something. You have to show respect to your creators, because trust me, it will matter, and it'll make your project more human. Number 3, you have to be out there talking about your Kickstarter. And this is not, Kickstarter is not a field of dreams. You can't build it and they will come. You have to make them come. You have to make sure they know about it. You have to talk about it. You have to do live videos. You have to put posts up. You have to talk about other people's Kickstarters. You have to go talk about their stuff and then say, hey, by the way, while I'm here, I have a Kickstarter too. Why don't you check it out? And one of these things I got to say, and this is on my profile here, remember how I talked about I backed 134 projects? Now, you don't have to back 134 projects. I'm not going to say that. But if this number says 1, if this number says 2, there are going to be other creators who are going to look at that, and I know they look at it, and I've been told they look at it. And I have had conversations with creators who said, I won't back that person because they've never backed anything. So if you're not backing indie comics, why should indie comics back you? And that is something to remember. So not only do you have to get out there, but you have to prove that you're passionate about indie comics, and you have to prove that you're part of it. If you're not backing anyone else's work, why should they back you? And I'm not saying people won't back you if you have 0 there or you have 1 there, but they're going to be hesitant. And that's something to think of. Even if you have 10, if you go out and just get 10 PDFs from the time until your Kickstarter launches, and you spend $50, that's better advertising money right there than spending $50 on Facebook. With that in mind, let's get down to number 2. You need to be ready to print, or at least 90% of your book done. This is absolutely true. Far too often people kickstart at the beginning of their project or in the middle of their project, and then they have problems and they delay. Remember when I talked about delays? Delays kill your ability to have a second Kickstarter be successful. And it's the truth. How is anyone going to want to be backing you on a next Kickstarter if they haven't even gotten their issue? And I've seen creators get caught in this, and they can't, and I've heard them say, I can't afford to do the other one, so I'm still in the middle of this one, and I need to raise the money to do the next issue. And it's a dangerous road. It really is a situation where you're going to have a problem where people are going to be less hesitant to back you if you're asking for money up front. So I do suggest getting it at least 90% done so you understand it. You don't have any big problems, because I've seen it where suddenly an artist backs out after a Kickstarter, and that's horrible. I would not go to Kickstarter if I don't have all the art ready. I have to have the cover and everything done, every piece of art done on the inside. The only thing left that I might leave is maybe some promotional art, maybe a back cover, but even that I'd want done. And I suggest having that done. You should be lettering when you go to Kickstarter. And now we're going to talk about number 1. Have your printer secured and ready to go. This was a mistake I made. I did everything with making sure we were having the book ready. I did everything that I thought was right, and then I made a huge mistake. I started to talk to the printers only at the end of the Kickstarter when I knew the type of money we had and the type of order we were going to put in. And that was a little bit of not knowing how much we were going to raise. We made our goal and then some, so we happily made the goal. But I also had hoped that maybe we would pull off something that I could have done a little more special. But the minute it became clear we couldn't have done that, I kind of started looking at that point for the printer. And the big mistake I made was not committing quick enough to one, not getting someone in a position where it was going to be. I wound up choosing a printer based on, we would have done Print Ninja. I don't have anything against someone who does a Print Ninja. For me personally, it wound up being a thing. I couldn't deal with a communist country because of my family, and because my family's from Ukraine, and I'm first generation on my mother's side. Because of the way the communists had treated my family, it felt very wrong for me to deal with a country that does communists. And I know I buy things from China all the time. I can't avoid it, but I can't avoid where I print my comic book, and to me that mattered. So I couldn't go with Print Ninja, and I went to two other publishers I want to use, and I won't use names. I'm not gonna. This isn't about embarrassing anyone, One publisher couldn't do the size, and later out I found out that they can actually do a similar size. So it's kind of bummed that I found that out after, but at the time it left me to disqualify them from the list. And then my third choice showed up, and we were talking, and I just kept having problems connecting with them. And it became this bigger issue that wound up being impossible for me to connect with them, and it was very disheartening. It was a big problem, and we just could never connect. And because I trusted them and I told them I was serious about them, it cost me 4 to 5 weeks. So we had our project delayed. By that, we were potentially going to lose our ability to deliver on time. We had just gotten approved to be on Amazon. So I made the call that we were going to use Amazon to fulfill our comic books. We got a copy, we agreed with the quality, we made it special so that it'll be something that they only have. No one will ever own the issues that they have because we stopped making it. You can't get that issue anymore as of June 1st. And we only left it open and we sent the link for them if they wanted extra copies. And as of June, we're taking that off the market. No one will ever be able to buy that particular version of Fetish Baby. So it will become its own collector's item because it will never be reproduced, and it won't be produced in large numbers like the other ones have been. With that in mind, I really do think you guys need to have a contract written out and be honest with your publisher and tell her, hey, look, this is the basic of the Kickstarter, and this might be where we're going. I need prices. Get that all out of the way. Don't make the mistake I made, because that was the worst part. Here we were a week after Kickstarter, ready to print, and it took us an additional 5 weeks. I want to thank Panther Printing here in Florida. We found you guys, and you guys made a situation so much better that was already worse. Because we could pick them up from the publisher themselves, and because, and I'll be able to show on Facebook right now, I actually don't have a comic close to me, but we went, I'll use the Amazon one. And sorry for YouTube, you guys can't necessarily see this, but for those on Facebook, you guys will see that we're not an average comic book size. We went with a magazine size. We kind of did something different. We went with a magazine size because not only did it showcase Satane's art beautifully and really let it shine, but it also gave us the opportunity to just do something that was out of the box thinking and gave more room to the reader. And, you know, this is more of an adult themed comic book. And we kind of leaned into that, and we're like, okay, you guys, like, you refer to us as like an adult magazine, forget it. No problem. We'll be an adult magazine size. So it was kind of our way of also answering to that. And none of us thought it was trashy who worked on it. And all the people who did think it was trashy are the ones who never read it. So it was more of like an inside joke that if we're going to be called an adult magazine, we'll go with that size. But I do think that it was the best size to go with. So, I mean, it was a long travel to get there. And because of all the mistakes I made early on, I implore you, don't make the same mistakes we made on it, and get your printer lined up, man. Get them a PDF. Show them a PDF. Even if you haven't fully finished lettering it, show them a PDF and make that a thing where they see it and they understand it and they can tell you any mistakes that you might have, because sometimes a printer will tell you, you got to change this, you got to adjust that. Get that out of the way while you're running your Kickstarter instead of staring at your Kickstarter screen. It really is important. It really will save you time. That became a big problem with us. We went back and forth with Amazon too, because there were a couple of mistakes. So before anyone saw it, we were already fixing it in that format there. And what we were going to do originally when we went to the other publisher was we were going to do a comic book size, but we decided to do just magazine and have that be special Amazon. But we went with the official we're not going to go with the official comic size because we loved how Satane's art looked like that, and to shrink it I thought was a crime. And that's why I often call Fetish Babies an art book as much as it is a comic book. And for those who saw the video today, you guys know we chose a different format. We didn't necessarily do panel boxes because, and we'll talk about this more later, the story for part 1 isn't a moving story, it's a told story. The main character is telling you what has happened to her. And we pick up in issue 2 where it's going to be not the same as issue 1. There's a different artist, there was always a difference in art that was going to happen. The difference being something we'll reveal soon, because that's not what this is about. But those are things that you have to keep in mind. You have to keep in mind what your next step is. You have to always be ahead with your Kickstarter. So you always want to have your printer put in front of you. You want to have everything written out. You want to know what you're doing. Don't be like us where we scrambled. And that scrambling, I mean, if you take gift cards out of it, because I wound up having some gift cards that we wound up earning some points. You know how you earn points for shopping. So to us, out of pocket wasn't that bad. But if you take away the fact that we couldn't use those gift certificates on anything else, those points that we had earned, it put us back a good $300 to make sure that I got the fans, or I should say Alyssa made sure, and I helped her, make sure that all of our fans got everything that we promised to deliver. Ironically, the hardest thing that we had to do, and this isn't on the list, but I'm going to mention it now as we close, the hardest problem that we ran into, and I do warn everyone about this, is you're always going to have one thing that's going to go wrong, and it's usually something easy. Now, we had the printer go wrong, and that was arrogance on my part. I'm going to just change the screen because you guys have been looking at the same thing for a while. That was arrogance on my part, not looking at the printers heavier. I really thought it would have been easier when you're paying someone, but it became a nightmare for us. And for us, it might not be an issue with you. We had people going, well, I don't know if we can print that because of the content, which is another video in itself, how insulting that is to say something like that. But that's another video. We'll talk about that another time. It's one of those things where you're not even hearing a person out because you already think that it's something. And everyone, again, who read it was different. So keep in mind that you might run into some brick walls like that. The biggest brick wall that I think that you could necessarily run into as far as when you run these kind of campaigns and all that, getting back to the bigger point as we're scrolling through here, is that you're going to run into problems that you're not expecting. For us, we were going to do this cool thing where Alyssa was going to read Fetish Babies in her voice because the character's Barbara, and she thought it would be better with feminine. We went back and forth who would read it, and she said she would read it. So I kid you not, this is supposed to be a special PDF, and this is something where we have to get together. And you guys can hear Jax running in and out. And during the reading of Fetish Babies, I don't think anyone wants to hear a little kid running through a room. So it became something that we did have to do when Jax wasn't necessarily up. And every time we have tried, I kid you not, to get this film, for some reason something goes wrong. We had the mic for some reason didn't record. On another take of it, we had the doorbell ring and a UPS was delivering, and it wound up killing the groove, and it wound up not being able to make it happen. And when the doorbell rang, the dogs got mad. Everyone started barking. We have tried to film that now 6 times. And we don't want to chop it together, which we might wind up having to do, because as she's reading it, I'm scrolling, and we're trying to hit the notes and trying to time it just right. And that was something we really thought was going to be simple. How hard would it be to narrate your comic book and read it to the back of a video where everything's scrolling? The answer is, when you have a 2-year-old, it's pretty hard to get time where both parents can be in the same room having a conversation and not having the Tasmanian Jax run around. So we sent out PDFs to them, and we're still actually going to really try to get that done. We might set up a babysitting session where Jax isn't even in the house, because some of the problem too is he'd be in the other room and he'd be making those noises and you could hear it, and that just didn't feel appropriate for the content. I didn't think anyone would want to read that and actually hear a young kid screaming in the background. So it was something that we were mindful of, and we didn't want that. So that was a problem we didn't expect. And you got to understand that with Kickstarter, you're going to run into those problems. The easiest things are going to be the most complicated things you run into, whether it be your printer, whether it be your letterer, whether it be deadlines. Something happens in real life. Cal, who did Alter Life, and he relaunched it, and he had that success after failure. His artist wound up having a stroke. You can't prepare for that. So not only be ready for something to go wrong, but be okay with it. You know, understand shit goes wrong and problems are going to happen. And when you go into Kickstarter, when you hit that countdown clock, expect there to be problems. Expect people not to like something you posted. Expect someone to say you're posting it too much. Expect there to be negativity, and just let it roll off your back and fix the problems. When you have a problem, fix it. Perfect example. We did, and I'll talk about this, and I'll actually show for the first time just on Facebook. So if you're on YouTube and you want to see this, you got to go to my Facebook page, Rob Anderson, S-I-N, and you'll find me really quickly because I'm the only Anderson. For the first time ever, I'm going to show guys on actual Facebook. Okay, you guys can see this, right? This is a picture, and there's no nudity in it, so don't worry. Now, you'll notice the lettering. We took a chance with the way that we lettered this. We put the lettering and the coloring the way it is and the way it looks specifically for a reason. That background color is vanilla. So we were writing the story of Fetish Babies on top of the color vanilla. In other words, writing over the vanilla world. So there was this big premise behind it, but there were some people, and we heard this more on the digital, because everyone who's read the actual physical comic book loves the color, loves the look, but apparently digitally, sometimes it hurts people's eyes. Now for me, reading white text on a black background kills my eyes. It always has, it just bothers me. I'd rather white and black, or I'd like the color. The color scheme itself, the one I use for Fetish Babies, is very easy on my eyes. And the truth is, all of our eyes act a little differently. We're all nearsighted, farsighted, or whatever have you. So someone said, I'm having a lot of trouble reading it. It's hurting my eyes. And I could have been all pissed off, and I could have told him, oh, well, you don't understand the significance. You don't understand why I did it. Look at how clever I am. Or I could have done what I did. I told him, I'm sorry. That was not my intention to ever make something hard for someone to read. I'm going to make it right. I'm going to make you a brand new PDF today. I'm going to change the background colors and the font, and you tell me if this works for you. And that's exactly what I did. I recreated the lettering pages, and I turned them to pure black and white, and the person was very appreciative and thanked me for it. And there was something that was a moment where, as a creator, you could put your foot down and say, well, this is just how it is, or you can listen to your fans and you can make an alternative version. And that's the point of Kickstarter. You're putting a book out there, and understand, until you actually put that book out there and it's not printed on Kickstarter, because if you've printed and you're on Kickstarter, I won't say you've done something wrong at all, but you're not leaving yourself open to make any last minute changes, and that could become something you regret later. And I know a couple creators who printed their book before they went to Kickstarter, and someone pointed out this moment or pointed out a mistake that they didn't realize they had, and now they have a printed book with mistakes. And look, mistakes happen. I'm sure there's a mistake in a Fetish Baby somewhere. As a matter of fact, in the Amazon copies coming this summer, there's actually gonna be a contest to find something I deliberately hid in it, and the person who finds it is not only going to get Fetish Babies #2 for free, but they're going to get to be added into Fetish Babies either 3 or actually 2, depending on when the contest runs. So stay forward to that. So I actually hid mistakes on purpose because, you know, everyone makes mistakes, and I thought it'd be fun. So far, no one's caught it. Those of you who got the Amazon, if you're watching, there are 2 mistakes in the book that are deliberate. And I'll give you the hint now before it even goes live. Just for watching this video, I'm going to give you something no one else knows. It's in Latin, the mistake, and it's not a mistake. It's deliberately planted there, and I did it on purpose. But when we run the contest in the summer, so if you see it now, don't say anything. Wait till the summer when I run the contest. The first person to identify that will get Fetish Babies 2 for free. And they will be the first person it is mailed to as soon as we have a copy. So that's going to be a huge thing. But, I mean, mistakes are going to happen. Things you're not going to know are going to happen. And you have to be prepared for that. And that's the #1 thing that I can tell you about Kickstarter, is that as beautiful as you can make it, you're not just going to need the support of others. You're going to need the patience and the willingness to learn from your mistakes. Pivot when you have to, make changes as you need to, and fix the problems as they arise. No one had any questions or comments. We're going to cut off here. We will be back later today for those live on Facebook. Just stay tuned with me, and I'll explain why. For the YouTube audience, always thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, always reach out to us on our actual social media sites. Fetish Babies is coming back in October, so stay tuned for that. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, always reach out to us. We will help you promote your Kickstarters for free. And we do that because we love indie comics, and we needed a platform. We all needed this platform, and now we have it. So let's embrace it and share. Sharing is beyond caring. Sharing is creating new worlds. So to remember to go out to Kickstarter today and just randomly share a Kickstarter that you like. And it's so easy, and we'll show real quickly as we go out how easy it can be to share a Kickstarter. Here we go. My good friend Philippe, The Few and the Curse #3. And I just shared it while live on Facebook within seconds. And we're done. All right, YouTube audience, you guys have been great. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you later. We'll talk to you later about Kickstarters on Kickstarter Talk in the next episode coming up soon.